What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Coin Vigilante podcast. So today we have a special guest. We got Jon Moore, and he is a really enthusiastic guy on Twitter. He has a really good following. I think he has over 10,000 followers. So cool guy, really enthusiastic with Bitcoin, crypto. And I brought him today because I think he's going to bring a lot of, good feedback and good opinions about what's going on with the markets. And so without further ado, Jon, welcome to the show, man.
Yeah, Carlos, thanks a lot for having me on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited. So, all right, if you can give us just a little bit of your background and kind of, how you got started into crypto, I think that'd be kind of good so that the audience understands who you are, where you come from, and what's going on with you, man.
Okay, sweet. Well, I'm not a tech guy, and I'm not a Wall Street guy. I really am just a average Joe. I worked in the payments industry, so I sold credit card processing, and I would place credit card machines in local businesses, and that was my business I was involved with for the last 12 years or so. And that business kind of evolved, and I got more involved with like point of sale systems, and I just got to see some of the problems in money and payments. And when I kind of really absorbed Bitcoin and Litecoin in 2017, I was like ready to absorb it at that point in time, and it clicked. And I was like, this is so needed to help the system in our money. Because again, I saw a lot of problems that a lot of people don't see, that just walk around the street paying with a credit card. So that's what led me to my infatuation with cryptos, we'll say.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I think, man, everyone has such a different story of how they got into crypto and Bitcoin, Litecoin. And I think it's just cool to talk about that because, to be honest, the first time I ever heard about crypto was my mom. So my mom woke up to me and she was like, hey, man, have you seen what's going on with cryptos? You can actually buy this coin digitally, and it's not like a stock, right? You can just buy it, you can send it without no one knowing. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, that's interesting. But I guess my passion for money and trying to understand it was starting to grow when I was in college, before I even knew about Bitcoin. And I started to realize, why is it that the system is the way it is? We don't really study about money ever. I never had one class in college that taught me about the creation of money, who puts it out, who controls the monetary nothing. Okay. And nothing. I took international business, right? I did learn, cool things about international business, but nothing about one of the most important things in life, which is money, right? And so I was starting to wonder, okay, what's going on? Why is it that things are getting so expensive? Because I did some research. Man, houses have been tremendously increasing with inflation over time. And, the purchasing power has been lost for the little guy. That's just the case. That's how it's been. Yep, and 100%. So, I knew there was a problem, but then I never knew there was a solution. I couldn't figure it out. There was no solution presented. Then all of a sudden,
it's funny you brought that up because what really made me want to dive into Bitcoin and crypto. In the beginning of 2017, I was kind of like burned out from the payments business. And there was so much fraud that I was questioning the system. I was like going home, scratching my head every day. And I was like, how is this going to like continue, the whole money and payments for the future? Because there was so much what they call synthetic identity theft going on, which when they steal someone's identity and then they set up a fake merchant processing account to process credit cards for a number of different reasons, scams, stolen cards, all different types of things. So I was saying to myself, man, there's so much of this going on. It's so easy to do. They don't even talk about it. I was like, man, I was really like questioning everything. So I had been hearing about Bitcoin since 2012, 2013, but I never really wanted to learn more about it, I guess. And then somebody showed me a transaction, and they said to me a couple key words. They said, there's no central authority and there's no chargeback that can occur, which in the credit card world is like a fraudulent payment. And I was like, well, what do you mean there's no central authority? They were like, watch this.
Right.
They showed me the back end of a Litecoin transaction, like on the blockchain. They said, see this. And I said, how'd you get this info? And they said, it's a new technology. It's a public record. And I said, we can't even get this info on our clients. It's so hard to get. And I that was it for me. I was off to the races of learning, man. And that was, here I am today.
So yeah, it's interesting because I mean, you have a different understanding and view that drove you into, Bitcoin and Litecoin, because you have been dealing with the processing payments, right? You know that side of money. So that is interesting. But so I guess, is that really what drove? Because if I look at your videos and if I just keep scrolling down all the way back till I started following you, I mean, you were literally out in the streets spreading the good news about Litecoin, Bitcoin. What is it that drives you to be so passionate and enthusiastic and put so much effort and time into spreading this?
So I saw it as an opportunity for people for both holding money as far as preserving their wealth against what's coming, which, as I've learned more about economics and our money and Bitcoin, obviously, and you see the storm that's coming, the financial storm, you want to alert people to it and educate them. But as far as payments go, I was really interested in getting the word out there because I said there's a lot of times I would get calls where people would say, Johnny, I got to process a credit card. Somebody called me from a state far away, maybe 1,000 miles from where they're at. They want to place an order. It seems a little risky. What do I think? I said, yeah, it seems like it could be a little risky. And they would say, well, can I take the payment? And I said, well, you have risk. You can lose the money after you get paid and ship the merchandise. And people always were angry with me. They were very angry. It was never a good news to deliver. And I was really like disappointing people. And I was like, man, I don't feel good about what I'm doing. I really feel good about what I'm doing. And then I learned about Litecoin. I said, people aren't going to want to pay this way, but I got to get the word out there that this is what can protect you. And I'm so passionate about it because when people have problems in the regular payments business, I'm like, this is why I'm talking about Litecoin. And they're like, well, wait a minute, John, I'm helping your problem. But this is why, check my Twitter. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing. So that's kind of why what drives me and keeps me going with it.
Okay, I gotcha. So you talk about, this financial system and how we're approaching something bad possibly. So a lot of people and my audience and, I've reached people that I talk to, like I try to, explain it to the parents of my fiance and, a lot of people like Bitcoin, this and that, but okay, yeah, I give them the Bitcoin speech and my 2 cents, but then they don't get it. And the reason is because they don't know the current problem with our system and why Bitcoin and Litecoin is so important, right? So if you could pitch in your 2 cents and try to explain in the simplest terms or however you want to explain it, how do you explain to the audience what the problem is? Because I feel like it's kind of hard to understand Bitcoin and Litecoin and the importance of them unless they figure out, okay, there is a problem with our system and a problem that is actually very real and it is hurting your pockets and your lifestyle overall. So I don't know if you could pitch in and explain it.
To understand Bitcoin, you must understand money. And most people don't understand that what a fiat currency is and that the dollar is no longer backed by gold. A lot of people think they can go to the bank and they're going to get gold for their dollars. So a tweet a couple weeks ago, I said, to understand Bitcoin, you must understand money first. I said, show somebody a $10 bill and then show them 2 half dollars from before 1964. Those had 90% silver in them. And ask them, which would you rather have, $1 or $10? Most people would say they'd grab the $10 bill because the 2 half dollars look old. Or if you said to them, the $50 are worth more, they would say, oh, is it because they're old? No, it's because they have silver in them. And the money used to have silver. So now those two $50 are now worth more than that $10 bill. It's just kind of a little lesson. And then you can I feel like we should, as the Bitcoin community, we should kind of start with more something like that that's not Bitcoin related, because then when you explain Bitcoin, they're more likely to get it. Because if you try to explain Bitcoin, they would be like, well, doesn't Venmo do that, or doesn't PayPal do that, or doesn't a credit card move money electronically? So they don't understand the problem, the core problem of our system.
Right. So, okay. So I agree with that. So now the audience also needs to understand. So, okay, we got this. Basically, this, if I pull a coin out of here, I mean, this quarter is, or whatever it is, it's worth more than the actual $20 bill, because a $20 bill is just a piece of paper. This actually is made out of something. It has value, right? So, paper doesn't really, unless it's backed by something, it's really not worth anything, right? And that's the fiat currency system that we're living in, right? And the reason why Bitcoin is important, if I, add to your point, is because our current system is not backed by anything. And Bitcoin, a lot of people say, well, Bitcoin's not backed by anything. Yes, of course, right? But the reason why it's valuable is because it's scarce. There's a scarcity to Bitcoin and Litecoin that cannot be devalued over time by a central authority.
And it's backed by energy.
Exactly, backed by energy through miners.
Commodity money has to be backed by energy. And that's what makes a commodity money and gives it value. So if you take a $1 bill and a $100 bill, it's the same cost to produce either bill. Now the $100 bill has 100 times the value of the $1 bill. Now, if I tried to produce 100 Bitcoins through mining, I'm going to have to spend so much more money and resources than I would to produce one Bitcoin through mining. We get that being in crypto. So we have to try to explain that to people, which is, we're always looking for new ways to explain it. And how I might explain it might vibe with certain people, and then other people might. The key behind this is for people out there that are listening to this, say, hey, I like what Johnny said there, but he confused me here. Let me tweak it and say this to people. Awesome, because then you're evolving what I'm doing and what Carlos is doing. You're making it into your own pitch that's going to be more understandable for a certain group of people or a certain demographic or a certain way of thinking. So it's always, the key is with Bitcoin, the more people know about it and educate, the more people will start to understand it and be able to use it and value it. But it does go back to, we are not taught about money. You're 100% right. Colleges, schools, they don't teach anybody about current creation of money and the history of money.
Right. And I like how you're talking about this different point of views, because people can understand things differently. And I remember I was watching a video. It was an interview between Raoul Paul and Dan Tapiero. I think that's his last name. Unbelievable interview. And, it's actually an unpopular belief, really, that I have. A lot of people try to say that Bitcoin is the better gold. Okay, sure. But Bitcoin is not just a store of value gold. Litecoin is not just a store of value silver. You cannot compare the two. Bitcoin is a bar, or gold is a bar that's just sitting there. And yes, it has value because you can actually get jewelry with it. There's miners that are out there mining gold that give it value, right? But then Bitcoin is not just a digital gold. It is more than that. The protection that happens through the network with all these miners that put it into it and basically make sure that the network keeps pumping. I mean, it's a whole nother level. It is multiple things. And people, when they just right out of the bat, just say, okay, well, it's just digital gold and that's it. Or like when digital. No, the fact that you can just transact without a central authority. The
Right.
scarcity aspect, the
Right.
transparency, a public ledger. There's multiple aspects that make Bitcoin and Litecoin so strong, not just the digital gold, not just the digital silver.
100%. Now I'm a fan of gold and silver, and I think it's a good insurance policy to have. And they're due to again the play on scarcity. But I see more going forward the industrial use of gold and silver rather than any type of monetary use. So what really put that like divide in my mind was during March of 2020, world markets crashed. So I was sitting home. What do I buy? What do I do? I said, you know what? I want to buy some silver. Let me try to. Silver crashed $12 an ounce spot price. You couldn't get it. I think you couldn't get it for under $18 or $19 an ounce. And then I'm talking to people that are saying, oh, it's because it's manipulated. The spot price is different from the physical price, yada, yada, yada. And I said to myself, okay, I see the scarcity in it and that there could be a shortage, but this has no monetary use to me. You're going to try to tell the Venmo generation and the Apple iPhone generation that you got two choices of ways to pay for something. You can use something like Litecoin, where you could send to the tenth of a penny of a degree of accuracy, you $49.55.555, right? Exactly that amount of Litecoin. Or so what if I give you silver? Am I going to call you up and say, hey, Carlos, I'm not giving you the spot price because it's manipulated. I'm going to give you this. It doesn't work for the generation we're in. So it's, I think you're right. People do sell themselves short when they use that narrative. I feel like the reason the narrative got out there with Bitcoin is because they kind of wanted people to think of it as digital gold, so people don't want to think about we can use this, the other uses of it. That's almost like, why let that cat out of the bag for the general public? Let them just think, yeah, it's digital gold. That's it. I feel like that's more controllable by the powers to be.
Right. And it's not just that narrative, right? Because and I love this saying by this analogy that Michael Saylor gave in one of his early podcasts when he first disclosed. Michael Saylor, by the way, is a CEO of MicroStrategy, for those that don't know. And he was basically the first publicly traded company that put some of their treasury, I think about half of it, now they have almost all of it, into Bitcoin, right? So they invested, I don't know how much they have now, $2 billion worth of Bitcoin that they changed from the dying fiat currency, as he calls it, a melting ice cube in the current system. Melting. Yeah. I just thought of that.
I love that. Love that analogy.
And then puts it into something strong that has that store of value capability. And so anyway, I just think the analogy that he gave is this. Look, we are seeing the decentralization of everything, where everything becomes software. So we had Apple, okay? Apple decentralized communication between people by providing phones and putting it into our hands, right? Google. So before, you only were able to get information from one source, and that was your local newspaper. That is the only thing. Information was centralized. What did Google do? It decentralized information. It gave it to everyone. Anyone with internet connection can now go in and basically educate themselves about anything because it's decentralized. Okay. Yeah. Then we have Netflix. What did it do? Man, the only way you could watch content was go to the AMC theater right there, watch a movie, go back home. Okay. Or you go to Blockbuster, right? So now it decentralizes content. You can see it from everywhere. And the same thing happened to Facebook. Decentralized friendships, right? Everything is decentralizing now. And we have not seen that yet for money. And that is where the narrative changes. It's not just that store, that digital gold. It's literally decentralization as we speak of money. And it is taking it away from having state controlled monetary policy to basically putting monetary policy in the hands of code that, people are not going to go in and just print trillions away,
Yeah.
devaluing your cash that's sitting in your bank account, earning 0.001%. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about this, because our current system doesn't value our time and effort that we put in our 9-to-5 job to conserve our purchasing power. Everything gets expensive because they devalue that money. And that's what makes me want to join Bitcoin, Litecoin, because I want something that's going to take me out of this rigged system. I mean, that's the way I look into
So
it.
I love that you brought up about the bank doesn't give you any interest and stuff. So, you got apps like Celsius, Abra, Voyager that pay you interest. Okay. Now I'm a big fan of, hey, hold your own private key for a lot of your crypto, yada, yada, yada. You got to learn how to do that. But there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I'm going to put some in some of these apps to generate myself some income. And then also now you have an asset. Now, say you need to get some cash. Instead of selling and creating a taxable event, you can borrow against yourself using your Bitcoin or your Litecoin as collateral in an app. And actually, Celsius will give you money at 1%, as low as 1%. So it's pretty incredible. Now, this puts the power back in the hands of the little guy. Another thing I saw working in credit card payments was a lot of predatory lending. They call it cash advance. And that was really, it's not as big anymore. It was big like 5, 6, 7 years ago. It was huge. And these were like really high interest loans that people would want to get. And they'd borrow money for 5, 6 months and they pay back 40, 50% interest. And it was like, it was only legal because it wasn't technically a loan. It was like an advance and it was like a loop of the law. And I was like, man, businesses that start doing that are never going to get ahead. So it's, you own assets without counterparty risk, you're going to get ahead. And really what separates, and Michael Saylor says like, Bitcoin's 1,000 times better than gold. Like I said, I like gold, I like silver, I like Bitcoin, I like Litecoin. They have different uses, but there's a lot more use I see for Bitcoin and Litecoin just as far as ease of use. So like somebody might say, oh, well, I can bring my gold to a pawn shop or this or that. You have to rely on that pawn shop to be open. You have to get there. What if there's a pandemic and they lock down retail shops? They're not essential. You can send me to Alaska, middle of Alaska, and say, hey, I got internet. You know what? I need to, I'm collecting interest on my Bitcoin right now. Oh, hey, I need to grab a few bucks. I don't want to sell. Let me borrow against it. Let me send myself $2,000. I mean, voila, from clicking buttons. So it's, the problem with the stock market, see, people can make money trading stocks, but you have counterparty risk. Who owns that company? What did they do? What if they go kill somebody that weekend? You put all your money in this company, the CEO turns out to be a mass murderer, and you wake up Monday, now you can't sell the stock on the weekend. You're like, the CEO is a mass murderer. Everybody's selling the stock on Monday. So cryptos is just such a better system.
Yeah, or you get that situation, since we're talking about stocks, where Robinhood tells their customers, oh, you can't buy anymore, right? They completely change the rules of the game only to protect the little rich guys that are there, right?
Yeah.
So that they can keep shorting and take the price down, right? So, I mean, it's such an unbelievable opportunity what Bitcoin and Litecoin are providing. And I mean, I'm bullish on everything, but I mean, and that's one of the things, man. Like if I look right now, and it's more of a rant for me, but we are literally seeing one of the biggest wealth disparities before our eyes right now in the pandemic. The pandemic has basically created this huge wealth disparity because in one of the worst economic crises since the Great Depression, what are we seeing with the stock market and real and hard assets? The stock market is at all-time high. In one of the worst economic, I mean, unemployment is still at 7%, right? People are literally lining up in food drives trying to get food, right? And then on top of that, basically what the government and the Federal Reserve did was save the stock market at the expense of the purchasing power of the average American. And I write a newsletter, and in this newsletter, I actually wrote this, right? So the top 10% own 50%, 50% of all assets in the United States. Okay. Now, the bottom 50% only own 2% of the assets, whether that's, real estate, whether that's gold, whether that's silver, Bitcoin, equities. And so,
or any type of asset,
any type of asset, right? And so if we see, I mean, we're literally seeing how rigged the system is before our eyes. The stock market going up, hard assets, and then they print trillions of dollars, devaluing the cash. That's what people have in bank accounts, right? They might have a mortgage, right? But they don't have the asset that these big people do. So if you're not seeing how rigged the system is right now with the fiat system, the fiat currencies system, then you're living under a rock, man. I mean, I don't know.
Part of the problem is the stock market. So the stock market is part of what I call the PSYOP that's going on, the psychological operation. And it's they use the stock market to manipulate the public. Public says, "Oh, look at the stock market, look at the economy." Stock market, little does the public know. First of all, most of the people saying that, I ask them, I'm like, "Oh yeah, you got money in stocks?" No. Okay, I don't got money in stocks. They don't realize that it's only it's a few big stocks that are swallowing everything up. And also the stock market goes up on bad news. If there's bad news, there's weaker this, so we're going to have to do more stimulus to print money. They might have to do say they come out now and say, things are looking bad. We're going to have to do a $6 trillion stimulus instead of $2 trillion. Guess what? Monday morning, the stock market's going to be rallying. It's going to be shooting to the moon, right? It's like, wait a minute. They just said that everything's so terrible. They got to do all this more stimulus. Why is the stock market rallying? So it's totally separated from reality. So it's, it's scary. And most people they don't get it. They don't see what's coming. They don't, it's how the system is. They don't want people to get it. They want people to be pacified. They want to, we're seeing right now, I always predicted the last few years when I would do crypto talks, but a lot of the stuff that was going to come, but I always talked about universal basic income. And I said, we're going to see UBI, universal basic income. And people asked me, they said, what is that? I said, it's where the government mails checks home to people and they pay people. And they said, that'll never happen. I said, oh yeah? And people would tell me that'll never happen in their lifetime. These are people that were my age. I said, are you planning on dying next year? I said, like, what? They said, that won't happen for like 100 years. And I said, no, that's coming really soon. And we're seeing the precursor, the spring training of UBI, which is the stimulus payments. You don't take money away from people when you give it to them. You don't notice these stimulus payments. Now the public's demanding more, right? And now, part of me, I don't blame the public for demanding these stimulus payments because the government locked everybody down and the government handled it horribly. So it's kind of like we hit an iceberg, and to sit there now saying, let's complain about the water that's gushing in. The water's gushing. Taking everybody out. It doesn't matter what they do at this point, the boat is sinking, and that's what people have to realize. So I tell people, if you're listening to this podcast and you're involved in Bitcoin, you realize you got to get on a lifeboat. Now, hopefully you've been preparing for the last few years, getting your lifeboat ready, and hopefully your lifeboat flies. And when this problem really hits, you're flying away from the mess, theoretically. So that's the end game, or that's the goal of, unfortunately, for where we want to go. Now it stinks that the system this is going to happen to the system. It's not the goal that the system goes down. There's this big problem. It's just that we get it, that it's inevitable. So that's what we're trying to get across to everybody, that this is coming. Prepare yourself. It's not time to run and hide. It's time to face it head on. What do I have to do? Let me get prepared. I know I got to get in a lifeboat.
And if you think that's perfect, if you think that it's just both of us, just a few random people thinking this, then you're wrong. Because Michael Saylor, I mean, you are having basically a gold rush currently happening with some of the biggest corporations, some of the most legendary investors, Paul Tudor Jones, Druckenmiller, Chamath. I mean, you name it. The biggest, actually BlackRock, which is one of the biggest assets, companies or organizations with the biggest asset under management. I think they hold about $7.7 trillion in assets under management. They are trying to get into Bitcoin. Now, we already have PayPal, who I think has about 300 to 400 million people in their platform. Now you can buy and sell crypto. So PayPal legitimized crypto, basically. That's what happened. And
this
now
Elon Musk,
the richest guy on earth right now. I mean, if this doesn't ring a bell to you, then I don't know what does.
He tweeted an interesting meme which had some symbolism. He said, I think it was in December, he said, trying to live a normal life, but Bitcoin keeps getting in the way. Like, if you think about it now, the richest man in the world, you say, what does this guy have to worry about? Well, if there's going to be hyperinflation, which I think is definitely coming, he absolutely has to be worried about it, because you have big money, you could have big problems. So he could get wiped out just as fast as he built up. So yeah, he's trying to live a normal life, and Bitcoin keeps getting in the way. It's probably like, he's like, man, he has to do something about this Bitcoin and get involved with it to preserve the company's wealth and to preserve his wealth. So it's something that's on everybody's mind.
Right. And again, I mean, we're seeing the gold rush happening before our eyes. Big corporations are coming in, and they're basically right now, if you look at the charts, the outflow going out from exchanges into hardware wallets is unbelievable. So right now the demand far outpaces the supply. So, and these are people that are buying Bitcoin. It's not just like the retailer mania that we saw in 2017. These are people that are buying this to hold long term because they see the value and they see the danger zone that we're approaching in the current financial system with hyperinflation, right? And the purchasing power being lost thanks to our system, right? So really, the audience, just try to take this away, because I mean, you really got to understand that there's this gold rush happening, and they're taking your Bitcoin. They're taking it right now. So
and the key thing to know, Carlos, how you said that all these big institutions and wealthy people are accumulating Bitcoin right now, and Bitcoin's limited in supply. There's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins. So if the world's getting more technical, more digital, there's more of a problem with inflation, and there's more people trying to buy this Bitcoin that's getting more and more limited in supply. That's why we're so bullish about it, because it's kind of comes down to the old supply and demand in economics. And it's not, you don't have to overthink it from an economic standpoint. It's supply and demand. If there's less supply and there's more demand, price will rise. Now, doesn't mean it rises every day. Look at the trends, and that's what we want to get at. You could listen to this podcast, and Bitcoin could go drop a couple $1,000s, and you're like, John and Carlos said supply and demand. It's gonna, what are they talking about? It's a general trend. So there's always markets pump up and they sell off a little bit. They pump up more, they sell off a little bit. And you got to look at the trend of markets. One other thing I do also tell people, don't always look at buying Bitcoin. Okay. If you go to another country, if you were to go to Canada right now, would you say to yourself, I'm going to buy their currency? You would say, I'm going to exchange, or I'm going to convert into Canadian dollar. So I tell people, we're going into the internet and tech age, the sci-fi age, and the futuristic world, you're converting and exchanging into the best internet money that was ever created.
Yes, that is a fantastic analogy. That's true. I mean, we're literally transferring from a dying system to basically the light at the end of the path, right? So that's what we're looking for. So you're talking about trends, talking price action. Where do you think we are in the cycle? Because I keep getting a lot of these questions, and people are saying, well, are we reaching the top to where we're going to see a crash like 2018 and going into a 3-year bear market? I don't think so. But what do you think? Where are we in the cycle with this trend that we're seeing?
I mean, the best consensus of like the traders out there and stuff, of everything I've watched and listened to, people think this bull market's going to continue until the fall of this year. So people are generally saying we'll hit the peak as far as the cycle goes, I think in like October of this year is what they're saying. Now, one thing I always tell people, I try not to look so much at the US dollar price. I try to just compare crypto to crypto. And I don't look at it if you trade into like an altcoin and it loses value compared to Bitcoin, but it goes up in US dollar value. You didn't really win. You kind of lost because you lost Satoshis, which is like Satoshis are 1 unit of Bitcoin. So I always try to compare, like I look at the Litecoin to Bitcoin ratio a lot. How many Litecoins equal 1 Bitcoin? And right now, Litecoin looks really undervalued historically, where it's about 250 Litecoins to equal 1 Bitcoin. And if you went into summer of 2019, leading into the Litecoin halving, the ratio went down to about 55 to 1, where 55 Litecoins equaled 1 Bitcoin. I try to really monitor those ratios to see which assets are valued versus undervalued out of the ones that I like in the crypto space. And because the way I look at it is, I'm not trying to cash out. I'm cashing into this system because I'm converting in. This is the future. So I don't really want to necessarily look at it as, hey, well, I made X amount of dollars. I look at it as, well, I'm growing my total Bitcoin holdings or my total Litecoin holdings. And that, I feel like everybody should try to look at it as, especially people that are your age, that are younger, look at it really as you're trying to build your wealth, and you want to own stuff for the future, and that gives you more power. You can borrow money against it. You don't have to pay taxes if you pull all the money out. If you borrow money against yourself, there's a lot of benefit you'll give yourself if you think that way.
And it's kind of hard to picture it, because a lot of people don't understand. I've tried to explain to people, hey, when you sell, you don't want to sell into cash. The whole point of this is to either accumulate more Bitcoin, or in my opinion, I do like to accumulate Litecoin as well, right? That's ultimately your goal, is to have more Satoshis, more Bitcoin, because I mean, what are you going to sell into? You're going to sell into the dying fiat system?
Look at a real estate investor. When the real estate investors sell, do they sell and take the cash? They usually sell and buy another property.
Exactly.
And you got to look at it as Bitcoin and Litecoin is a real estate in the cryptocurrency in the future world. Because of this cost of creation, it's commodity money. So there's going to be a lot of crypto tech that's not truly, like I consider real estate, like how Bitcoin and Litecoin is. So like Bitcoin and Litecoin, you're accumulating real estate in this future world. They're two dominant networks that the trains are going to have to come running by on that network. If they're a highway, cars are going to be driving on the highway. So it's kind of like, hey, why not just own part of the highway? That's why I look at it as, hey, it's easier to buy Bitcoin and Litecoin than to try to speculate on a lot of different cryptos, because it's you're trying to guess what cars are gonna drive on the highway, where Bitcoin and Litecoin are those dominant networks. So buy the real estate and look at it as you have the opportunity to buy real estate in an area that people don't realize what they're going to be building and what's to come. So you don't look at it so much as cashing out. Now, guys, if you're going to get kicked out of your apartment and you had a bunch of Bitcoin and you didn't sell any, and then you're kicked out of your place and you're like, yeah, Johnny and Carlos said, yeah, buy Bitcoin. I'm going to be like, well, you should have paid your rent at least so you didn't get kicked out of your place. But you know what I mean? Like within reason, try to always be like accumulating more.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, so I got a few more questions for you, John. So one question I have, what is the bullish case for Litecoin? What makes it fundamentally strong? What do you see in Litecoin coming in the next couple of months?
Well, there's a lot of big things happening with Litecoin. Mimblewimble, which is also, they call it MWeb, bringing some fungibility and privacy to Litecoin. This is a huge technical upgrade for Litecoin, but this is a really big advancement in the history of money. So when this is successful on Litecoin, this will probably be adopted in the future by Bitcoin. Kind of like how SegWit was adopted first by Litecoin and then Bitcoin adopted it. So this is a huge upgrade that's going to give Litecoin more fungibility and privacy. That's really big. Then you have Venmo. So Venmo, we all know Venmo is the popular payments app and peer-to-peer, like cash, like an app that's similar to cash.
PayPal owns it. Right?
Yeah, PayPal owns Venmo. So Venmo is going to enable buying and selling of cryptos Q1 of this year, or the first half of this year. I think it was Q1. Litecoin is one of the only cryptos they have enabled on there. So that's huge. A lot of liquidity that's going to come into Litecoin. Liquidity for any type of real money is important. Now, the crypto space tends to overlook this. They're so tech focused. But when you go out and talk to regular people in the real world, they're like, okay, where do I sell it at? Where do I buy it at? How long has this been in existence for? How many places? So if you say, hey, look, there's 100 places to sell Litecoin at, you can sell any amount, you can buy any amount, it's like, oh, wow. But if it's like, oh, yeah, you can't buy the crypto in the US, oh, it's hard to get, oh, they only trade a certain amount a day. So liquidity is really, I feel like, going to set Litecoin apart this year. And then there's, you're going to see Litecoin engaging in DeFi. There's certain, like that, the Spark, this is Spark token that's going to be launched on the Flare network. They integrated Litecoin, so Litecoin will be able to kind of interact with DeFi on that network. And Cardano is considering doing a what they call a Vel Cardano, which will bring interoperability between the Litecoin and Cardano blockchain. So I think what you're going to see really going forward is a lot of people integrating Litecoin into what they do. And because Litecoin has a lot of liquidity and it'll have a lot of interoperability between different blockchains. And this is what really gives Litecoin a lot of value, is that it's quick to transact with, being a proof of work coin. The fees are low. It's very usable. So like, again, you said Bitcoin before, people kind of sometimes, put it into that digital gold narrative where they kind of say, okay, they corner into there and say, you're digital gold, that's it. And a lot of the maximalists try to almost say it's digital gold, but we want Litecoin to be used. So that's really where we're going with Litecoin, is the use.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah, that's a good take. Yeah, I'm bullish on Litecoin. It's going to be unbelievable with all the progress that they've made with Mimblewimble. I think we're going to be looking to a good price against Bitcoin and USD pair. So yeah, I'm bullish on that. And then, okay. All right. Last few questions. So just one word to describe Bitcoin. Go.
Secure.
Okay. One word to describe Litecoin.
Pay.
Peter Schiff.
Asshole. Is that 2 words? Hyphen.
All right, 2 more. All right, let's go. Ripple.
Bad.
All right, last one. Stock market.
Manipulated.
Okay, that's good. That's fair. Yeah, I like that. All right.
Fair, right? Sorry, Ripple people. It's not for the record. I'll give my quick 2 cents on Ripple. I don't hate it like most people do. I don't see the value in the token. Again, there's no mining, there was no cost of creation. It's not a proof of work coin. But I do wish them success for their network and for adoption. If they can get adoption of their network and other cryptos can transact on it, then I'm all for it. So I'll leave it at that.
Gotcha. Hey, that's good, man. Well, I appreciate talking to you, man. I think we had a pretty good, interesting discussion when, talking about Bitcoin, Litecoin, the problems that we see in the current system. I really enjoyed it, man. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, man. This was an awesome time. Happy to help educate your audience and have fun listening to this, guys. And Carlos is a great educator, so definitely stay tuned on all of his future podcasts. And you guys couldn't be listening to a better guy. He's young, he's eager, and he's out to give the world information.